CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.
Now we are going to cross to Minister Hoggard, who is joining us on the line, Associate Minister for the Environment. Andrew, thank you very much for your prompt reply. I just want to know what Andy's got over you to be able to turn up so quickly. I really appreciate it. You don't have to answer that, by the way.
Sorry, just trying to make technology work. No, just,
Doing your job.
Andy, if I can deliver, I'll deliver.
You're a good man. Thank you very, very much. Hey, so talk to us about the stock exclusion rules becoming more practical.
So this is, I guess, a continuation of changes we made last year around where you had from waterways, and particularly the big extensive properties, not forcing them to go and fence off thousands of kilometres of waterways where you're only running a few sheep and some beef and your sort of iconic high country stations. We're now also making sure that we're not spending a whole heap of money where you've got extensive grazing occurring around wetlands as well, which again would have put in a huge amount of costs for marginal, if any, environmental gain. So it's just trying to be more practical with these rules, and I guess a main focus for us is the work around farm plans, having the work that farmers do be focused on what are the challenges on their farm, in their catchment, what are the things they need to be doing to manage those critical source areas, not just dreaming up a sort of one-size-fits-all rule in Wellington.
Yeah, Andrew, I suppose the question a little bit is the definitions. What is the definition of a wetland, and what's the definition of low intensity? Has that part of this at this point? I mean, I see you, but I guess, that's when the criticism is going to come, right? From people, from who.
Yeah, look, and I mean, the whole definition of wetland, I'm on my way up to Taranaki now, and last time I was up there, I was visiting a bunch of farms that have been caught up with wetland rules, and even a classic example was the Balance Factory. They wanted to build a decarbonisation plant at the back of it, but the paddock they wanted to do it in, it was viewed as this is a wetland. Now, quite frankly, you had a standard paddock with a ditch running through it and a few rushes in the ditch, and that got called a wetland. And it was my definition of a wetland is if you walk across it and you've still got your gumboots on the other side, it's not a wetland. That's sort of my practical view of it. And so the definition is it's very contentious and up for debate a lot. In terms of intensity, what is extensive? Generally, if you're running animals behind a wire, doing that, break feeding them, that's generally viewed as intensive. Where you've got lots of animals spread across the paddock, generally that's viewed as extensive in the beef space. It is a challenging one to try and come up with definitions, and so you often just got to come back to some simple practical measurements.
Yeah.
Just on the ruling, and this is from the press release, Regulation 17 of Resource Management Stock Exclusion Regulations, which relates to natural wetlands that support threatened species. That's the other component of this, right? The definition of a threatened species has been amended, so no longer applies to beef, cattle or deer that are not intensively grazing. So it's not just every wetland, right, we're talking about here. It's the ones that specifically have threatened species in them. And then again, definition of a threatened species, is that generic?
Again, it can be in one region different from another. I believe I'd have to dig right into the detail, but I imagine there's a bit of a list of what are threatened species. But again, the key thing here is often these areas are on your sort of extensive properties, and it's really hard to sort of fence them off without creating all sorts of other challenges where at a particularly at a dry time of year, it's not going to cause a lot of harm to get the cows or the deer or whatever, just been in light number, being able to wander through, take care of some of the grass and all the rest of it. And the harm is very minimal. It's not where you get the damage is where you've got, intensive mobs moving through and pretty much, knock everything right down. What we're talking about here is the odd beef cow wandering through an area.
Yeah, you've really upset Halter's model now, Andrew, because that was their selling point, to be able to get people to put collars on.
Well, no, I mean, I still think that'll be still a thing where those farmers can look at it, be really practical about it and go, actually, it's bloody wet right now. We don't want the animals going into this area because A, it'll cause damage, even if it's extensive. And also, Murphy's Law, if you're going to have an animal go down, it's never on a flat piece of paddock. It's always in a gully or a wetland or, a bog somewhere. So, that model's still valid for Halter there of being able to, manage those animals in those sort of areas. And it's actually, quite frankly, a much better way of doing it, utilising that geofencing.
It certainly is. I guess one of the issues you're going to get immediately out of this is a knee-jerk reaction from all and sundry. But even just the casual listener listening to this, what can you say to them that means, to give them confidence that we're not just degrading environmental standards willy-nilly?
Look, I think the main thing is each farmer having a farm plan. Where this is being done at a catchment level, and it's an area you're probably well familiar with, Andy, over in the West Coast. And I did a big trial there, Lake Moana, is it, I believe?
Yeah, yep.
Yep, so every farmer in the catchment there did a farm plan, and they saw a step change in reduction of contaminants in that going into that lake. And to me, that is the sort of thing we need to be focusing on is, a combination of the farm plan, being involved in the catchment care group, and a key part of catchment care groups working is that those farmers in that group understand what are the risk areas on their farm and what are the mitigation steps they can take to avoid it. To me, that is the work that we as an industry need to be doing at the catchment level, knowing what are the challenges, what are the issues, and then at the farm level going, okay, how do I contribute to those challenges and what are the smart, practical things that I can do on my farm that will mitigate those effects.
I'd love to know your thoughts on this. You're heading to Taranaki. They have been real leaders on farm plans. Canterbury with ECAN, as you mentioned, the West Coast, and multiple other different regions. So what do you think of the situation where Environment Southland only received 9 certified farm plans out of an estimated 3,700 farms that need certified farm plans under regulations by the 27th of May? Culturally, something is different is happening in Southland for them to understand that message. And I believe federated farmers are responsible for that.
Southland's a bit of a different case. So we nationally paused all the farm plans while we're reviewing how they're going to apply and what the focus of them is going to be. Southland had this weird situation with their rules or their district rule where they were going to be required to have a farm plan that was way different to the national one, and it was going to be you can either do the national one or the regional one. So I'll be announcing something shortly that they're not going to need to do the regional one, that we will have in place this national one that they'll be able to do instead. So it's going to make a lot more sense for those farmers to be doing this national farm plan system rather than a bespoke regional one.
But Andrew, why haven't you been able to get this through sooner to give some certainty? Because it's a cluster.
Well, it is. Yeah, look, we put out press release, or we put out something a couple of weeks back giving notification around that. We're just waiting on a couple of things. We have talked to the council in regards to that. Certainly I'm hopeful to be able to make it 100% more clearer very, very shortly. But there's, unfortunately, as I keep getting reminded, no, Minister, you can't go and just say what's on the top of your mind at any point in time. You've got to wait for various things to happen, otherwise you'll get yourself in trouble.
It's much better when you do that,
one of
Andrew.
those situations.
We enjoy when you do that, Andrew.
It's much better when you do that. We enjoy that way, way better, honestly.
Yeah. I'll be milking cows again if I do that too often, though. Yep.
Hey, one of the issues down in Southland, we haven't looked into it yet, though, is that there's a lot of concern down there about, I think it is about some cultural plans and things. There's a big discussion about that, which we haven't touched. Just quickly before we finish, Andrew, just coming back to the I suppose the press release, down the very bottom there's a note to editor, and it says regional councils and unitary authorities remain responsible for managing and enforcing stock exclusion rules that may adopt stock exclusion requirements in their regional plans. Do we risk getting a patchwork of standards across across regions because of that, or is this overriding all of that?
Look, this will be a lot more clearer once we've got the new NEA, what we call National Environment Act, in place with the new national directions. Unfortunately, yes, right now it is incredibly messy because we're sort of phasing out, or the RMA is about to go, but it's still operative. We've got some bits of the new direction coming in. So unfortunately, yes, I would love it if it was a lot more clearer right now. But we are in a bit of a messy situation. But going forward, it will be a hell of a lot clearer once we've got that national direction in place so that councils are able to adopt their plans so it takes into account the new national direction.
Isn't that exactly the same as a national policy statement previously and an interpretation by regional councils of a national policy statement?
Yes. So, yeah, the national direction will be replacing the national policy statement. It's just using a different word for it.
But the interpretation by regional councils could lead to the same situation in Southland regardless.
I would not think so. I think we're going to intend to be a hell of a lot more clear and direct on these things.
There's a lot to come on this one, Andrew.
I know.
And I know,
Yes.
I know you're sitting there, and I can see you biting your tongue. We'd love you to just tell us right now, but you're not going to, because I know you don't want to go back milking cows just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew,
all right.
thank you very much.
Let him go before he says something that'll get him into trouble, Sarah. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.
CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.